Good morning, everybody. Okay, Roy, we're going to begin. So, Councillor Collins. We're just going to begin, all right, Councillor Collins. Good morning and welcome to East Devon District Council's Housing Review Board, meeting on the Thursday, the 30th of April. I am your chair, Councillor Simon Smith. The meeting is being recorded and is live on the Council's YouTube channel. Can I remind everybody present to use their microphones or your comments will not be heard or recorded? And a couple of health and safety announcements. There are no fire drills anticipated today, but if the alarm does sound, can you leave the building through the nearest fire exit and follow the green running man sign above the doors? Please make your way to the rear of the car park, which is that direction, and wait for the organiser of the meeting to tell you it's safe to return. This is a smoke-free building. If you wish to smoke, there is a smoking shelter at the rear of the car park alongside the building. Toilets are available in the stairwell, so we've got ones just here, our nearest ones, the building at each floor landing, and water is available at reception. There's also a water cooler just here as well. Finally, I'm just going to give everybody 30 seconds just to check that your phones are either muted or turned off. Give you time to do that properly. And that everybody's signed in. I'm sure everybody's signed in as well, because next we are going to do our roll call of committee members present and declarations of interest. When your name is called, can you unmute your microphone and confirm by saying present and declare any interest you have, and then state that declaration, including which agenda item your declaration relates to, and state exactly what it is. When you have confirmed you are present and declared any interests that you may have, please mute your microphone again. Alethea.
So, Councillor Sarah Chamberlain, I believe, has given her apologies. Councillor Chris Bearhop.
Present and nothing to declare. Thank you.
Councillor Roy Collins.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Tim Dumper.
Present and nothing to declare. Thank you, Alethea.
Councillor Mike Goodman.
Present and nothing to declare. Thank you.
Councillor Melanie Martin.
Present and nothing to declare, thank you.
Councillor Helen Parr.
Present, nothing to declare.
Simon Smith.
Present and nothing to declare. Present and nothing to declare.
Sarah Clark.
Present, nothing to declare.
Rob Robinson.
Present, nothing to declare.
I've had apologies from Rachel Brown and Rosie Dale. Sid Ford.
Present, declared.
And Wang Tian.
Present and no interest declaration.
You're a Court Chair.
Super. Now's the opportunity for anybody outside the committee to raise an interest. So we've got a couple there. Aurora.
Thank you, Chair. I'm an East Devon tenant. Thank you.
And Councillor Gazzard.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm also an East Devon District Council tenant.
Thank you both. Yes. Okay. Thank you, Brian. Thank you. Super. I believe we are quorate, so which is great. Before we go any further, I'd like to propose that Councillor Chris Bearhop join me as Vice Chair. Is there a seconder to that? Thank you, Councillor Dumper. I think we just need to have a vote on that and make sure we're all happy. So all in favour? Yeah, thank you, Chris. We'll give you a minute or so to join us, and then we'll commence. While Chris is getting settled, let's talk about the minutes from last time. Does anybody have any comments about the previous minutes? No, in that case, I will sign them off now, and that means that Chris can continue to get settled.
Chair, if I may, just on the minutes, I'm not sure exactly when they were published. They are a lengthy tome and a very full account of the meeting, which was 3 months ago. So it is difficult just for me maybe, but maybe for other people to remember exactly what was done 3 months ago, because I've slept since then. And I was just wondering if we could be notified when the minutes are ready, or the draft minutes are ready, so that we can review them at that point rather than at the point where they are presented to us at the meeting. Would that be possible, Chair?
Sorry, can I just say, so we aim to publish the minutes online within 5 working days of the meeting. So basically, they should be up the following week, consistently. And then they also obviously go to Cabinet, so they're published on that agenda as well.
Super. I'm reliably informed they can be circulated to the board as well. Yes, so that's what we'll make sure that happens if that's okay. Yeah, fantastic. Okay, brilliant. Just going back a stage, I just want to make sure we ought to vote and do an official vote on if you're happy to approve the minutes from last time. So all in favour of the minutes being approved from last time? Fantastic. Thank you. I think that's unanimous. Agenda item 2, apologies, has already been done. And agenda item 3, declarations of interest, have already been done as well. We were potentially expecting a public speaker, but they have not arrived, so that's agenda item 4. And there are no matters of urgency for agenda item 5. There are equally no confidential exempt items for agenda item 6. So that leads us nicely to come to Andy for agenda item 7, the forward plan, which is pages 12 to 13 in the reporting pack.
Thank you, Chair. Item agenda 7, you've got the Housing Review Board forward plan in front of you. As per the notes from last time, we've populated with the meeting dates, which I hope is helpful, and you'll also note at the bottom I've added the meeting dates for the coming year. Always confuses me because we're in the new financial year, but this meeting is the last of the last financial year, technically, Q4. There were due to be a couple of extra policies coming today. So apologies that they're not here. That's because of the public consultation process that we're going through to ensure that we've got that tenant involvement and scrutiny in the development of those policies. I wanted to make sure that was wide and robust and that our tenant scrutiny panels have a chance to see them. So they will be coming to the next HRB in July. But yeah, any questions on the forward plan? Happily taken.
I'll start outside the committee. Just to remind committee, I know that you are well versed in this now, but I only get one attempt at giving you options to speak outside committee for an agenda item. So I know you stack your questions sometimes, so that's all good. So starting outside. Yes, Councillor Gazzard.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies if this is a silly question, but on page 13, item number 2 on the first panel, could you just explain what it means by review and implementation of digital capabilities for tenants actually mean? I mean, it may have been discussed at a previous meeting and I've missed it. Thank you.
Thank you. That is referring to looking at how our tenants can communicate with us digitally. Obviously, there's lots of other communication channels that are also important, but this is specifically looking at things like tenant portal as an example. So it's work that has been in train, so it's coming down the line ultimately. So it's fair to say that that's coming forward in the future.
Yeah, I want to encourage you, if there is things on here that don't make sense or you don't understand, for anybody in the inside or outside committee to ask, that's completely fine. That's what it's here for. Anybody else from outside committee? Councillor Barnett.
Thank you, Chair. On the same page, actually, the one above it, review and replacement of home safeguard equipment and housing stock. That's been going on for all the 3 years that I've been here. And obviously that's a very important thing. I just wonder, can you confirm that it has been done, that no one is missing or not having proper digital connection or whatever it is so that it actually works? And I know previously there's been excuses about officer time, bits not being available, all sorts of things. I just want confirmation that that has been done and that it's basically waiting for someone to say, yes, it's all been done. Thank you.
We might tandem it. Yeah, so it's an evolving and ongoing, and we did do a presentation, I think it was in Q2. Emma came along and presented on the digitalisation of Home Safeguard and telecare equipment and what that means. So I understand it's been there for a while, and it's because it's been a changing. So I think it started with, do we need to upgrade our equipment? To actually, there's now a national change in digitalisation of the telephone network, which telecare equipment relies on. So yeah, we're working with Home Safeguard. We've got it in our capital programme to fund the replacement of the units that we need across those properties. And yeah, we'll be coming back with updates on the progress of that over the current year. So it's in this year's programme.
Just on that, if
Yes,
through
you
you,
follow up,
Chair.
yeah.
Just can we have some assurance there is no one then who is not able to contact us when they need to?
Helps if you press the right button. We've currently got just under 20 still on the analogue system. They're still receiving a service. There's no problem with that at all. The rest are all on the digitalisation programme. The piece of work that's happening at the moment as well is to dovetail two pieces of work so that some of the care system is fitted within the smoke alarms and things like that. So we're trying to get smarter technology in there as part of that. But as I say, there are under 20 people on the analogue system now. That includes our own staff on lone working devices. So I couldn't give you an absolute figure of that 20, how many of them are tenants or residents. But it's incredible progress if you think about the sheer volume of work that the team have been churning out. By no means excuses, to use your phrase, Councillor. Actual just reality of running and working within assets, supply, demand, and being able to kind of meet that within a planned, programmed approach.
Councillor Westerman, I will come to you shortly, but Councillor Arnold has just joined us. Have you got any declarations of interest? Thank you very much. Councillor Westerman.
When you carry out your surveys, how many tenants see sight of the surveys and how are they informed?
Councillor Westerman, we might have an opportunity to discuss this on a future agenda item. This is just about the forward plan. Is your question related to the forward plan?
Okay, fine.
I will come back to you. I won't forget you. We'll get that. Any more questions from outside committee? Good. Okay, coming inside committee. Councillor Goodman?
In these reports, it says there's going to be a newly created customer complaint survey being bought in the next session, but it's not on the forward plan specifically. But it's in one of today's reports.
Yeah, Andy?
I think there's two things to that. I think one, that will be included in the complaints report, the customer survey. I think so. It wouldn't be a separate agenda item because it'll be part of Tanya's update on our complaints, but also completely recognise that box on page 13 is kind of these are some of the things we know, but there's going to be loads more next year. So if there's anything else that you're expecting to see, please let me know. And when I draw up the refreshed forward plan for Q1 meeting, I'll try and make sure we're planning everything out and including as much as possible in advance, so it's not added last minute.
Councillor Martyrs, could I just ask Councillor Goodman just to switch your mic off for me? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I know we had a chat about the garages, didn't we? Can you just remind me, is that going to come under the asset management strategy?
Yes.
Super, Zara, yeah.
To get back to the forward plan, this isn't actually a forward plan. It's almost like a past plan of what's happened over this year. And I would have expected, at least for July, given that we're a day away from May, to actually see a detail. This is what we're expecting at the next meeting.
Yes, I think as I just said, it's that meeting at the that box on page 13 is detailing what's coming up. But I hear what you're saying, Sarah, and I think probably the way my head works, because it's not a rolling plan, it's been done for the financial year. I've not thought about creating the next one, so that's on me. But no, I did sort of reflect on that. I was reading it, thinking actually that would have been useful to have done that. So I take your feedback, and when I get to April next year, I promise to have more foresight in the next year's forward plan.
Super. Anybody else inside committee? Yeah, Councillor Martins.
Yeah, I just thought of something else actually that I'd be quite interested in seeing going ahead, but I don't know if it's something that we necessarily get too involved in, but I'm going to bring it up. You know, our contractors' agreements, our contractor's contract, if you like. Is that something that we would discuss in this forum? Could we in the future?
It wouldn't be something that we would discuss. No, the council generally doesn't bring contracts forward in any other area of the business to be scrutinised or to be considered by. It's an operational matter for officers to have delegated authority to work within, would be my response, Chair.
May I come back? Yeah, I guess, I mean, we're always talking about value for money, aren't we? And that's something that we want to see demonstrated in this forum. Will that come through then in other areas?
Absolutely. So that's the KPIs and the performance, key performance indicators, you know, in those areas, and how contractors are performing against contracts. Sort of use the word contract about 20 times, I think. So that is, again, that's our responsibility to flag some of those issues, and hopefully, well, not even hopefully, I know that we will get some feedback on some of the performance of contractors today specifically, and it's generally within Nathan's presentation, because that's where the majority of our contracts obviously sit, but Nathan does normally do that as part of his presentation, and I know for a fact there is definitely areas to consider today, because we do have concerns with particularly one of our contractors at the moment. So we're flagging that with you from our perspective. That's our responsibility to raise. That's part of our role. If you feel at any point that we're not raising those issues and we're not bringing those things forward, then absolutely you could ask us to present more detailed KPIs potentially. But at the moment, I do feel that the level is right in terms of the information that's presented. But again, you're free to challenge that at any point, as you know, Mel.
Anybody else from inside committee? Sid, sorry, was that hand, Sid? No, okay. Giles, this is just a note, isn't it? It is. Yes, okay, fantastic. Okay, moving on to agenda item 8, we're going to look at the finance report. I'm going to come to John, that's pages 14 to 20. I've got John on my script, sorry, Rob. Sorry,
right.
Rob.
Apologies, you've got me again, I'm back. It's a shame. I shan't go through too much in terms of the report, other than the fact that I hope I've put the words initial, draft and estimate in there enough times to show the fact that these are very, very early numbers. They're not final numbers. We will be coming back with final ones. Obviously, when I had to write this report, it was a good few weeks ago, and we'd only just finished the year end, so we haven't got through accruals, balance sheet, etc., but I've done my best. And
Rob,
so far,
Rob, sorry, can I just ask you to bring your mic a little bit
Yeah, of
closer?
course.
Just we don't want to miss a thing, Rob.
How's that? Is that better? Super. So far, as we've been working through, there aren't any material things to bring to your attention, but when we get the final numbers, we will come back, and anything that is material, I will let you know. So there will be a comparative presented. In terms of the actual trend, it's similar to reports that you've seen previously. We're underspent in revenue areas and capital. Capital slightly more than we expected, so which will mean more slippage into 26-27. So more work to do in 26-27 to catch up. As we sort of, the general trend of the actual service, the kind of bums on seats point has been made many times, and we don't have the right bums on seats. So things are picking up, but obviously there's a lag in terms of spend that comes through the accounts, mainly because obviously procurement takes quite a long time to get contracts working forward and getting the spend through to the ledger. So other than that, I don't really have anything else to update you on, other than to take questions.
Okay, starting outside committee, Councillor Barlow.
Thank you, Chair. When you look at these are wonderful. we're quids in everywhere. We've got more money in capital. The concerning thing is, though, is why. It's all very well keep saying we're short of a few staff, but you know, when you look at the capital expenditure, you know, it's like 50% down. I mean, are we 50% missing on staff? Are you ever going to be able to catch up on this, or is this just a thing? I mean, this is a sort of thing where, you know, this committee is supposed to look into it, find out why this has happened, and see, is there a way we can make sure it doesn't happen in the future? So although they're great figures, they do open up more concerns to me as to why we're not delivering this. So if we're not delivering the repairs and the capital expenditure, you know, surely if we're not doing repairs, then the capital expenditure will be worse next year because we're not doing the repairs. Or is it just that we've done all the repairs and they're all perfect?
Is that a general comment, or is there a question?
Well, I'm not really sure. It's sort of it needs looking into, in my opinion, more. But I don't sit on the committee, so I can't do that. You say I'm allowed one question, so I'm trying to sort of do it. I can't keep coming back after I listen to other people. Thank you.
Yes, Rob, if you wouldn't mind.
I'll sort of try and give you an answer to a non-question, if I can, if that's all right. I mean, we're kind of still very much on the sustainability plan in terms of like where we were when we're setting budgets. That's kind of where the problem kind of initially lies. So we didn't know exactly, we didn't have the stock condition survey, we didn't have the asset management strategy sorted, which ideally that's the kind of like the pinnacle, and that's the starting point of where you set your budget. So you go for asset management strategy, stock condition survey, work out where your numbers are going to be going, so kitchens, bathrooms, how old, etc. We didn't have any of that information when we set the budget. I would have said the budget was probably, right word, yeah, slightly kind of, I can't think of the word that I should be saying, but ambitious, thank you, bless you. Ambitious was the word I was going for, but yeah, so in terms of things like, the things to be reliant on and mostly be comfortable around is things like compliance. We are compliant, we're doing the work in terms of electrical stuff that we need to be doing. So we are focusing on the right things. It's just the kind of big works, the planned works and the major capital works, such as sorting out blocks, etc., we haven't got round to, and we haven't had the staff to do, whereas now we do have the staff, and hopefully it is a big ask for next year in terms of the budget that we've got and the slippage, but we should be a lot closer than we were this year. Hope that's sort of answered your non-question-ish.
Brilliant. Anybody else outside committee? Yes, Councillor Gazzard.
Thank you, Chair. On page 19, where it says capital funding, receipts and grants, I'm not clear in my own mind, what are you actually saying that the right to buy money, receipts that we get, is now being replaced by S106 money that comes in? Because if that's the case, I mean, normally town and parish councils have some input on S106 money, or have I misread it? And I apologise if I have.
Rob, do you want to answer that?
No, you're not misread it at all. There are, so it's not replacing, Section 106 funding is not replacing at all. There are certain, so obviously with Section 106, you know yourself, obviously being on town council, there are certain things that you have to use the Section 106 money for. This is a Section 106 receipt that has to be used for affordable housing, therefore we will use it for affordable housing. We didn't have to spend any right to buy receipts in this year in order to prevent repayment due to the new regulations. Therefore, we decided to use the Section 106 funding that obviously, again, also has time limits on it. Plus, we also got a local authority housing fund, I believe, looking at, yeah, Liam's nodding at me, brilliant. Grant from central government, and you can't use central government grants with right to buy funding. You can use them with Section 106 receipts. Hence the reason why we did it in that way and not right to buy. Does that make sense?
Councillor Gazzard, does that make sense? Do you want to come back? You okay? You were good? Yeah, fantastic. Okay, anybody outside committee? No. Coming inside committee? Anybody? Councillor Chris Bearhop.
Thanks. I'm minded not to try and echo what Councillor Barlow said, but we have drastically underspent on capital for the well, this is the third year in a row that I've been involved with the committee. I suppose part one of my question, if I may, is just like some reassurance now that we are fully staffed, that next year's budget, and it's not stipulated what that is going to be, you know, achieved, if you like, in terms of the spend, the capacity is there for us to spend it. We are ambitious. We've set an ambitious target for spend, you know, to good ends, to meet our housing demand and to update our stock. We've done the things in the right order. You know, absolutely hear what you say, Rob, about putting the building blocks in place for us to do that. But we just need some reassurance, I suppose, on this performance, that we are, you know, going to hit our target for next year, which will, you know, be something. It really will be something, because you know that will start to transform our housing stock and our performance, I think.
Do you want to answer to that first?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, thanks.
Katrine?
Yeah, there's no doubt that it is ambitious. You know, there's no two ways about it. I think in terms of the staffing levels, you know, it was kind of October time, I think, from memory. I'm looking to Nathan to give me a nod. Sort of October time before we got those management positions in. Obviously, we had to get approval from the financial budget, you know, for the budget coming in. Recruitment processes take however long. Then notice periods for people to start. You know, it's not a quick process, sadly, which means that we had the provision there in case we did have somebody to start on day one, but we didn't have then the provision, obviously, when somebody started in October, to get through the level of work that was needed, hence the underspend in terms of the kind of capital works and planned works. Are we in the right position now? We are in terms of management. We need more bums on seats in terms of planned work surveyors, and that is something that Nathan has put together, a structured chart and a kind of proposal to myself and to Andy to look at and to consider to put forward to ELT, because it does need to be resourced. It is a bit of a speculate to accumulate situation, and now that Nathan feels confident, he understands what the makeup is, we've got the right managers in place, it's then now the next stage to kind of resource that appropriately. So that is the next step of what we're doing and where we're at, to just give a literally as of right now, that's where we are. So that is all part of that planned work piece. I think it is really important, and I'm really pleased that you've noted that the asset management strategy is absolutely critical in this. It would be remiss of us if we ploughed ahead with a load of planned works and then, you know, the asset management strategy came in, as we're going to present you and hopefully you'll approve in July. If then we had to do an about turn and then we'd spent a load of money that we shouldn't have spent, and we'd spent it in the wrong areas. You know, I think we're trying to be good stewards, and I would much rather carry money forward into the next financial year and be sound and feel confident in where we're spending that money than to spend, for want of a better phrase, willy-nilly this financial year so that I can't, you know, so I don't face questions as to why I've got an underspend in this committee. I think this is about doing the right thing, and sometimes that is not spending money. So that's, you know, if I can give any more of a emphatic response, please let me know.
Chris, do you want to move on to part two?
Catherine, that's emphatic enough. Thank you. Yeah, so, that's excellent. Thank you. So we've then got on the face of it, and I liken it to a profit and loss account. I'm not allowed to call it that, obviously. But we have a surplus on the revenue account, and that's mainly driven by £1 million underspend on repairs and maintenance expenditure. So, given our budget of 6 million or so on R&M, £1 million underspend on repairs and maintenance is very significant. And yet, we look in other reports that are coming up today on performance indicators that, you know, we are continuing to have problems with repairs and maintenance complaints. Is there something that is strategically happening here? So are we deliberately slowing down our spend on repairs and maintenance because it's triggered, if you like, by analysis from the stock condition? So we're clawing back some of the spend that we would be spending on less viable strategic assets, which is causing this? Or again, is it a capacity issue that we don't, or our contractors don't have the capacity to undertake sufficient repairs in the timeframes that we expect. So what's driving the underspend, I suppose, is the question.
I'm going to come to you, Rob, if that's okay.
If I take the first part, then I might pass on to Nathan. So the first part being a lot of what we've done is review significantly what we can and can't put into capital. That's not entirely reflected in the budgets, and that's what we're looking at the moment in terms of when to say like initial estimates and that sort of thing. Actuals is the bit I've been focusing on, very much so in terms of sort of saying, you know, because obviously what we're doing at the moment is saying any surplus we have, we are going to be basically funding our capital stream, so we don't have to basically put as much debt in there so to reduce down interest burden. So that's literally been the focus. There's been less focus on the kind of rearrangement and sorting out of the budget. We've moved quite a lot and significant amounts from revenue to capital, which isn't reflected in the budget right now. I'm kind of currently going through with Julia, who works for me, and with Nathan, just to make sure that we actually kind of get those bits aligned. So that kind of 1 million underspend that you're seeing in the kind of revenue line isn't technically accurate. It's a little bit, well, I'd say sort of slightly more than a little bit, kind of high in terms of a surplus. But in terms of the actual actuals, it doesn't make that much of a difference, which is why we kind of presented the numbers as they are. Essentially, we are focusing a lot on the asset management strategy, in the income and asset management contract. And Nathan is doing an awful lot of work in terms of pushing back on a lot of things. We have seen things slow down, and we are challenging an awful lot more than we ever have challenged before. So in terms of volumes and numbers coming through, it is looking, an awful lot different than it has ever looked before. And Nathan can probably pick up there in terms of operationally.
So yeah, going back to sort of having the right bums on seats, so definitely sort of follow Catherine's view of like, if we shouldn't be spending it, we're not spending it. So there's a lot more challenge going on in terms of where we are spending our money. On the complaints piece, we have totally changed how property and assets deal with complaints. So we did a lot of work leading up to Christmas, getting some new processes. So actually the complaint is coming back to the responsible manager. I review all those complaints. They go back to the responsible manager to make sure that we are putting the right action in place. And there's a lot more pushback on some of that stuff. You know, why would we replace a window that we can get another 5 years out of? And if we did it reactively, the neighbours would want it. So it's those type of decisions. So yeah, we're just seeing, you know, the outcome of having that more rigour in it. But feeding on the capitalisation stuff, that is going through the team. There's been training on them understanding what's revenue, what's capital, because it's such an important piece in terms of how you run an infrastructure organisation. So yeah, I think it's just generally we are doing a lot of the right things, and you're starting to see the outcomes of that.
Sorry to harp on about this, but I mean, you both make absolutely great points. But if we say we've vired X hundreds of thousands from revenue expenditure into capital, so number one is how many hundreds of thousands is that? So that would decrease the reported expenditure on repairs and maintenance, and it would inflate the already very low capital expenditure number. So that's number one. Number two is, in terms of technical accounting, we revalue our assets and have them valued at the year end anyway. So you've then got the surveyor's report on value, which potentially then writes that off. So that then sort of writes it back to revenue, I guess, at that point. Is that right?
Rob, do you want to comment again?
So you are right in terms of if you think of it commercially. If you think of it as a district council, it's not quite the same, unfortunately. So things like, I mean, depreciation and revaluation, yes, we do it. So for exactly what you're saying there. So if you imagine you've got your capital spend, so you have capital expenditure on your full list of properties, so 4,000, let's say 4,200 properties. We may spend, I think last year we spent, in terms of major repairs, 8 million quid, roughly. Sorry, pounds, I shouldn't say quid on YouTube. 8 million pounds. What effectively we'll do there is that will be effectively treated as an addition or an enhancement. However, none of that spend effectively impacts or is reviewed by our valuer. So we have an external valuer from the VOA who values all of our properties based on a beacon kind of process. He will review all of our expenditure and make sure none of it is actually enhancing the property to the point at which it will change the value. So if I say, for example, there aren't any extensions going on or anything like that, it's literally just bringing a property back to the standard at which it requires to be rented out. So he'll review that, and exactly as you say, you will go through and you will look at that £8 million and you effectively are revaluing it down to zero, because effectively you're looking at the revaluations of the entire properties themselves. Obviously they will change in value as well. However, that will then effectively, because it's a district council, be removed through your movement in reserve statement and come out of your capital adjustment account. Therefore, effectively, in terms of your impact on the accounts and cash flow and your funds, it doesn't make a difference at all.
Don't worry if everybody else in the room doesn't understand a word of that, because I feel like these two could have had a room and they could have talked about that. That was good. I'm very appreciative of both of these gentlemen and their knowledge of numbers, but don't worry if that kind of went.
I'm more than happy to have a half an hour geek out after the...
There we go, there we go. Councillor Dumper.
Yes, I was just trying to bring us back a little bit from the numbers, and I was trying to make the point, and I hope I've read the reports properly. My feeling is that this quarter's reports, both the performance and the finance, are very much bridging. They are very much talking about transition into the end of year statement, and that's the way I've been looking at it. And for that reason, I didn't want to feel that I interrogated it too much at this stage until those new people are fully settled in their posts, they're working. We know that we've had a very successful year, and I think we've got much further to go, particularly on things like voids, but we seem to be getting there. If I'm correct, please let me know. If not,
thank you for your comments, Tim. Yeah, no, that's great. Councillor Martins.
Yeah, I also really want to bring it back to grassroots, because I've always been very open about the fact that I'm not a numbers person, and I do sometimes struggle with some of these reports. I don't have a specific question, but what I just want us all to think about for a second is that when we are out in our wards and we're talking to somebody whose, bathroom doesn't work, it's a very difficult conversation to have with them when we say, well, they might say to us, well, I'm in desperate need of a new bathroom and you haven't spent the budget that you have on giving me a new bathroom. And, for us to come back and say, well, we were waiting for the results of an asset management survey, we've been recruiting and we're waiting for people to settle into their posts. Yeah, I just think that's a very difficult conversation for us to have, and a difficult message to put out there, and we just need to be mindful of that.
Agreed, Councillor Martins. Yeah, when you work on the front line and you see these things, agreed, it's the communication element of it that's hard. And we trust there's due diligence, and we're part of that due diligence here to make sure that we can understand and translate some of that into meaningful and put the right pressures on where needed. So, yeah. Anybody? Yes, Sarah.
I just need a quick answer on this. The delays due to the procurement process, is that getting better? Is it getting worse given what's happening outside East Devon? And how much of an impact has it had on the delays? And will it continue to have an impact?
For you, yeah, Andy?
Yeah, procurement, complex. Does my head in. I'm sure it does everyone else's in. Yeah, complex process, and we've been in a space of procuring sort of individual works at a time, what's in train at the moment is a procurement strategy that Nathan's worked very hard on with his team, looking at how we make that easier and quicker in the future so that we're not having to go through lengthy processes on small jobs and building up a way of doing things where we're able to call off works from an approved contract. So that's kind of where we're at. That work's not there quite yet. But yeah, so the plan is that it won't hold us up once we get those plans into place.
So you think it's a matter of process rather than the sort of stuff you need isn't out there?
Yeah, it's a mixture of both. So it takes resource to run those processes, and the processes are lengthy. And you've got all of your procurement laws and deadlines, which I'm not an expert in, so I won't start quoting them. But to stick to, and you're talking, several months of process for each activity. So yeah, it's a complex world, but we're looking to simplify as much as we can.
Okay, and yes, Councillor Goodman.
Thank you. I agree with many of the comments said about the budget and what's been used. And I think Melanie summed up really well is when you're on the doorstep or somebody approaches you about their bathroom. And I think that's something we need to take away. I've got a number of questions. The first one is, what concerns me is the significant underspending. I know there's ambition, quite rightly so, but this is significant. And I don't think in my time in local government I've seen so much underspending as I've seen here. And I think we've had some reasons for it, but the important thing for me is two things. We must learn from that and make sure the budget for 2026, 2027 is both realistic and achievable. I think is really important. I think the second point I would say is on your capital expenditure, we've heard a comment said about compliance, but there was £3 million budgeted for compliance. We only spent £280,000. Now, is that really a budgeting issue? Or is that really we haven't got round to doing some of the compliance issues? Because what we've heard is compliance we're doing well on. So I'm got confused on that one. So if I can answer, those, then I'll go on to a couple of other ones.
On the compliance question, I think it's probably slightly misleading in terms of the way we talk about it. So there might be a budget under compliance that's actually for capital replacements of components. So we're still compliant, but we'd had a plan to look at some of the components within that team. So whether that's something that sits under fire safety or under gas, etc. So just to clarify, it's not money that we're going to spend on becoming compliant or keeping compliance. It's more around that asset management of that component that sits in that team's remit, if that makes sense. You're going to have to forgive me because, Councillor Goodman, I've forgotten the first point. Oh, of course, the overall gap in yeah, and I think it would be fair to say there's no one single answer to that. We've talked about there's resource, there's procurement, there's the asset management strategy, there's a stock condition, but also I think when we're talking about the level of works that we're talking about in some of these cases, some of those projects that we had thought we may look to get to, you're talking $1 million, 1.5 million potentially for a single project. So it only takes a couple of those projects to be postponed. And that's a big gap, but actually that could only be applying to one block of flats, for example. So when you're working with the numbers we've got, it's quite easy to build that. But I think, as we said, we were also ambitious in that budget setting. Which, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think we'd had overspend in the last couple of years. We'd come back, I think, in the year before last and asked for a revised budget. I think everyone remembers that after looking at it. So I think probably budgeting with caution and rightly or wrongly, personally, I would always rather underspend than think that we can come in, I'm going to get it in really cheaply and then come back saying we didn't manage it, we need more. Yeah.
Rob, yeah, I think Rob's going to add some weight as well.
I mean, it's not really adding weight. It's just to sort of let everyone know, kind of, we are in the position now where when we're spending on capital, we have to borrow. So irrespective of what we decide to do, exactly as Katrin said, when we go and spend something, we want to be spending things in the right place at the right time, because we basically have to pay the interest on whatever we spend. The point, I'm guessing, when we sort of saying we're going back to talking to people in the kind of out and about, and they're saying they haven't got the things and they're making complaints, etc. We are investing as much as we get in terms of income in the right places. We're just being much more cautious around the additional spend, because we have to borrow, and currently interest rates, obviously, as you know, with things going on in the world, are not particularly wonderful. Therefore, borrowing is even more of a kind of difficult decision to make. So we've got to make that cost-benefit analysis every time we make a decision now. Just wanted to add that point.
Thank you, Rob. Yes.
Just one point to just finish with is that Rob's saying that there's going to be some minor changes because these were done 2 or 3 weeks ago. Just when will it go to Cabinet? Because I take it won't come back to us and go straight to Cabinet and then full council. Is that going to be sort of June, July time? And when it does go, and forgive me if we've already had the budget, but have we got an agreed budget for 2026, 2027? And have we seen that? Fine, thank you.
Great. I'm coming to Rob Robinson.
My question is just about the Section 106 receipts. And have they all been spent so we can... yeah, that was it. Just about the 106 receipts, and have they all, because I know they can be reclaimed.
It's going to be a toss-up between Liam and Rob. Rob, okay.
In terms of the affordable housing ones that we were talking about, yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Super. We're just going to note this as previous agenda. So we're going to move on to agenda item 9. We're going to have a very short break after this agenda item, just because I want to remain fresh as we tackle these agenda items. We're coming to Tanya for this one. It's pages 21 to 28 in your report.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, everyone. Firstly, before I go on, I just want to clarify the point about the complaint survey not featuring in the forward plan. And that's due to me wanting to get feedback from the complaint scrutiny panel on the question set and the tone of language before sending off for approvals and rolling out. The scrutiny panel is slightly delayed and the last panel meeting was cancelled. So we're currently waiting on a date for that, but it's expected to take place in the next few weeks. Further to the report, I just wanted to highlight that with regards to points 1.31.5 to 3.1.7 and the scrutiny panel support around the newly created complaints handling survey and tracker, of which was a regulator's recommendation, I note that there's a 10% increase in customer satisfaction for complaints handling, as stated within the 2025-26 annual tenant satisfaction report received yesterday, which now stands at 27%. The tracker will further support us to monitor satisfaction, highlighting areas that we're doing well in, but also areas that need further attention for improvement. This is a topic that I plan to go into more detail in Q1 for the next HRB meeting, but it will only be for the period of time that it's rolled out during Q1. And also further to points 3.2, I'm hoping that the survey and the tracker may capture further compliments, as I'm really keen to capture the balance between complaints and compliments.
Superb. Thank you, Tanya. That's excellent. Any comments from outside? Councillor Westman, has that answered your question? I see that was probably...
The only thing is, will all tenants get this, be included in this survey, or is it online or what?
Councillor Westerman, if you can turn your mic off so that Tanya can respond.
Thank you. Yeah, it's intended that that goes out to all customers that make a complaint during the complaint process and at the end of that complaint process.
Super, thank you. Excellent. Okay, looks like we're coming inside committee. Oh, sorry, Councillor Wilson.
I've got other things that I want to
apologies.
talk about.
Please continue.
Right.
Is it related to this agenda item? From what you just heard, Tanya?
First, I'm going to go back to the first complaints, who do the tenants sign them off? And are they, and if they go on to be second complaints, do you sign off the first complaints, and then are these shown in the numbers? Sorry, if I had an answer to the first question, I can rephrase the second, if I'm allowed to do that. Yeah. Are the first complaints?
Let's start with Andy. I'm going to start with Andy and we'll see where we go from there, if that's okay. If I can ask you to turn
that's
your
fine.
mic off, that would be good. Thank you.
So I think the question is about who's signing off for complaint responses, Councillor, is that correct? Yeah, so we've got different levels. The stage 1 complaints are looked at by the service manager and they sign off the response. If it comes to stage 2, if it's housing related, they all come to me for final sign off. So they're all reviewed, signed off. So we've got that level of scrutiny on them.
So when they're signed off, so they're included in your figures, even though there might be a second complaint?
Yes, so as soon as a complaint response is sent, that will be included as a responded complaint. So yet stage 1, we've responded, it will go in the figures as a responded complaint. We never know if a stage 2 is going to come in or not. So yeah, then that's why we split those figures out, because they need to be recorded separately.
And you never mention any legal cases in all this. So are there statistics on how many actually are carried on to legal processes?
So they're slightly different. So for complaints, if someone is unhappy with our response, they can go to the Housing Ombudsman. That's not a legal process per se, but that's covered in the report. Generally, the only legal processes that we then deal with is disrepair, which is covered, will be covered in Nathan's section. So we've got the figures on that in the Property and Assets Performance Report.
And if you still have concerns once you've heard Nathan's report as well, please do comment. I'm quite happy to do that. And it's good to know the process. Yes. It is. Okay, coming inside committee. Councillor Martins, yeah.
Hi, yeah, I want to ask you about page 24, point 3 at the top. Dissatisfaction with responses for requests for upgrades to kitchens, bathrooms and windows. I'd just like to understand, please, what sort of responses are we giving that people are dissatisfied with? Because I'd have thought surely if somebody is asking for an upgrade for some reason, there's a need for it. So what sort of responses are we giving that they're not happy with and then they make a complaint?
Just as someone who sees every stage 2 complaint, I thought I might try and answer that one. Again, every case, and I genuinely mean this, every case is different. You get themes, but as with most things in housing, it's really hard to write a rule book for how to deal with everything, because everything you look at, you go, well, this is different to the last time. And it can be a mixture of things. It can be related to people want a new kitchen, but it doesn't mean that they need a new kitchen, for example. It's a really difficult message to deliver. It's a message as old as time, for as long as I've worked in housing. But because a kitchen is dated, for example, or because a neighbour has had a new kitchen, you get different reasons that people feel that they should be receiving one. So you know when you're sending that stage 1 response saying, we've considered the evidence, the surveyor's reviewed your kitchen, but actually the kitchen is operational, it meets the standards, we're not going to be replacing it. You can almost bet that you're going to get a stage 2, because, and I get it, because if I wanted something as a complainant, I'd probably go back and try again. Some of them might relate to, no, sorry, I was going to say them, it's actually not related to that, so that doesn't help. But yeah, or it's because there is a repair, but they don't want to wait the length of time that it's going to take us to procure for that new kitchen to be done.
May I just ask a supplementary? If that's the case, then should we be looking at the criteria for making a complaint. Because if it's not really a valid complaint, then we could say you can't make a complaint because it's not valid, and therefore it would affect the reporting of the statistics.
You might want to fill in something that I don't say, but I agree with the sentiment, Melanie. In principle, anyone can make a complaint about anything. And if a customer reaches out to us and says, I want to make a complaint, it has to be logged as a complaint. We then have the ability to say, we do not uphold your complaint. Of course, we want to reduce the number of complaints coming in because it's officer time, it's a lot of work, and we report to the Ombudsman on our complaint levels, etc. And it is a sign of whether we agree or not, it's a sign of dissatisfaction. So of course we want to see those numbers come down, but yet ultimately we cannot. We look at things and we review our complaints in terms of, did we get in soon enough to stop it becoming a complaint? Or, for example, if someone approached me and said, I'm not happy about my kitchen, I wouldn't go and log that as a complaint because they've not submitted a formal complaint. I'd say, let me go look into that and get that sorted for you. So it's making sure that we take the right action in response to the communication that we're getting. But I'd say we're pretty good at that, and that gets triaged by the corporate complaints team. And if something's not a complaint, it's a first service request, then that will get past the repairs team in the first instance.
I feel like we're learning a lot about processes today, which is good, Tanya, sorry, you wanted to mention something.
Yeah, can I just add that with what we do see quite a lot of is the neighbours had new windows or the neighbours had a new bathroom or new kitchen and then they want it. So instead of it being a service request or a service inquiry, it turns into a complaint because it feels unfair.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Okay. If there's nobody else, we will just... Oh, Councillor Good. Yeah.
Thank you. A couple of graphs, really. First of all, on page 22, why did we put 2026 before 2025? Because if you'd have put it after 2025, you'd have got the trend correct. And I was surprised because I was so confused, and you're going to agree with me, we should have done it.
I'm going to agree wholeheartedly. I'm also going to tell you there's not an easy fix to it. The system that we're using it's the spreadsheet that we use to track the housing complaints, it's got a dashboard. It was very beautifully created by one of our systems geniuses a few years ago. Over time, that spreadsheet's become a bit corrupted, and so we're having to manually pull. So that's the way it's producing that, and it needs a lot of work to change some of the calculations that's in the background, but I know nothing about it. I'm talking like I know what I'm doing. I wouldn't have a clue if I was trying to do it. But yeah, it needs sorting. I couldn't say you'll see a difference in that in the next quarter. It's a big piece of work we need to do about how we're recording and tracking so that we're getting prettier charts and metrics coming out of it.
But to be blunt, you could produce a graph like that by just putting into Excel the figures. Even if you put it manually and you produce that graph just like that. It is simple to do, trust me. I think we can. The second on graphs, when we look at the number of complaints, what would be useful for me, and I don't know if anybody else agree, is to have a trend. So what has it been like over the last year? It's really difficult to know, having a graph form, what was it in 2025 compared to 2026 so far? Graphically, because we don't see that anyway, I have to go right back to last year's meeting to see where it was, just for simplicity and to then chart the progress that's being made. The last thing I just want to add, regarding the number of complaints going to the Ombudsman, how does that compare to last year and the year before?
I think probably my answer is, yeah, we can look at including some comparative data for you guys, yeah, if that's helpful. As I say, as you say, you can go back and look at previous reports, but I get that that is not useful when you're looking at a performance report. So we can actually look at having that moving forward. And we can look at some benchmarking data as well.
I think we get concerned, right, we've got all these, but how does that compare to others? And I think that's really important because we know how people, quite rightly so in some respects, do make complaints, but they know to say things to get effect. So I just think having a benchmarking could be really powerful.
I just wanted to add, Mike, I totally agree with you. And I think sector-wide across housing, we've seen people are using their homes totally differently now. So pre-COVID, we know that. People are working from home, people are in their homes much more than they ever were. So therefore, the repair that maybe was over there that wasn't really something you'd maybe call on or maybe report, and then maybe, you're now much more likely to do those things. Homes are being used in a totally different way, and therefore, everything's kind of stepping up, I guess. There's more pressure being put on that actual asset and that use. So definitely, I think there's definitely a piece in there around more and more cases going to ombudsman. That is just sector-wide again. We're seeing more and more kind of disreputable legal firms that are reaching out to people. I mean, I've never been a council tenant, and yet my inbox, my personal email inbox is full of, have you been a council tenant? Do you want to take them for disrepair? And so if they're reaching me, they'll be reaching everybody. Do you know what I mean? So, and so it's definitely on the up as a sector. So we can absolutely try and draw some of that information. I'm not 100% sure how easy it's going to be to do, but we can do, definitely.
Okay, brilliant. I'm going to come to portfolio holder, Councillor Ledger, and then I'll come into Councillor Dumper and then Councillor Menely Martin.
Thanks very much, Chair. I think the only other point that I was going to add is it's going to be quite difficult to do an accurate comparison from year to year, just because of the resources that the Housing Ombudsman has. So we've got a lot of historic cases that are being heard, say, this year or last year, which could be 3-4 years old. And so to track a trend across that, you could have some that are complaints that are being heard from last year, some that are historic, and so trying to track that trend through into an actual coherent picture is quite difficult to do. So I'd look to officers on how we can actually show performance within that area from Housing Ombudsman's cases, because it's not a linear picture there.
Thank you, Dan. That's helpful. We'll hear Tim, and then we'll hear Mel, and that will move on after that.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, as we're fully into process, as you outlined, I was just going to say, from what Andy has said, it sounds as if we designed some of our own categories and that sort of thing. Now, I may be wrong. I may have interpreted you wrongly. Do we have British local government is very centralised. Let's face it. Surely there are some national categories in order to do the benchmarking that we've been referring to. Is that so or not? Because if we're trying to compare, then we need something to compare with.
Yeah, so I think in terms of comparison, it's relatively easy to compare overall complaints data, but actually most housing providers, if not all, in fact, yeah, all of them should be publishing it because we have to publish that data under Ombudsman and regulations. So the data is readily available, but there's also, we have access to benchmarking data as well through other avenues. So it shouldn't be too much of a problem. Actually, there may be disparity in the categories that we use, the individual breakdowns, but the overall performances are pretty easy to compare.
Yeah, it was the detail I was asking about, and from what you say, the answer to my question is yes.
Okay, really. Brilliant. And finally, Mel.
Should have just said yeah.
Oh, mine's a really quick and easy question. Under complex cases, 3.1.2, can you tell me what a strategic void is, please?
Yes. It basically is an encompassing term for a property that we are choosing to keep void. So it's not void for a long term because someone's not done something, or a contractor's not gone in, or we've not relet it. There's a decision to hold that void, and that might be because we know it's going to cost a lot of money and we need to wait for a new budget year, for example, or we need to spread those costs out. Or it may be because it's going through a disposal consideration and that process. Or it may be that we know that there's a specific family who might be direct let to that property, but it's not quite ready, or it needs to be held to an adaptation. So there's a number of different reasons, but it basically means we have held it by choice rather than because the process or delays have led to it just being sat there.
Councillor Collins, I will come back to you after the break. I think we're running out of time. So what we're going to do, we're going to break for 5 minutes. If I can have you back by 11:10, and we will pick up from where we left off. We're going to move on to agenda item 10, our quarter 4 performance report. Darren, I think you're going to be leading us through with that one. Just to mention again, I know that it's been mentioned before, whether we can look at page numbers, because the page numbers don't always align when they get printed out with what's on the online report. So maybe we can go for agenda item potentially for future references potentially, but we can talk about that. Yes, go to you, Darren.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, everyone. Here's a Tenancy Services performance report for quarter 4. Tenancy Services covers the shelter housing team, rentals team, estate management and the communities team. First slide is regarding income collection. As you can see, income collections remains really high. Very impressive performance from the team, as mentioned in Rob's finance report, and rent arrears, again, historically low. I think it's the lowest quarter this year, which has been fantastic work from the team. The estate management team, I've got, as you can see, I've had 11 ASB cases reported, number of 38 open ASB cases, 9 decants, which I'll come on to in a few seconds' time. As mentioned in the last HRB, we had a slight rise in evictions this quarter, and estate inspections. I'm pleased to say the estate management team managed to complete 100% of those in the last 6-month cycle, which is the first time they've managed that this year, which is great. Again, tenancy visits, we're on 735 for general purpose tenancy visits, which was slightly below target, but as mentioned in the report, we did have a number of estate officers off for a period of time in the last, in the third financial quarter. New tenant visits, pleasing again, the team managed to complete 90% of those within target, which is in 10 weeks of tenancy start date. And for the end of the quarter, they managed to complete 100% again, which is great. Sheltered housing, 1,207 tenants were visited, which is 95% of target. Again, in the report, there's a little bit of detail there about why the remaining 5% as to why they weren't visited. New tenant visits, again, 95% completed within target and 100% completed in total. The communities team are working on at the moment on our Getting to Know You survey, which we're going out to all residents in the next month or so. They're dealing with roaming hubs. For those that don't know what roaming hubs are, they're like an extension of our community hubs. They're going to more rural areas. Last week, they covered the Collinson and Rockbeer areas. And keep a date in your calendar for the Resident Collect Festival. There's communications coming out to residents and to members regarding attendance. That's in August of this year. Just want to give a bit of an overview of decants. For those that aren't aware, decants accommodation is used when we experience property that potentially needs work doing and the tenant needs to be decanted out. We have previously used temporary accommodation, which is, as you're probably aware, quite expensive. We're now currently using 3 of our own stock at this moment in time, which is saving on average £1,200 a week. And the properties have been furnished to provide a home from home for our decanted tenants. And the last couple of slides just give you an overview of the work that one of our officers has done to get these properties furnished. Recognition to Rianne Hale, who works on our shelter housing team, who's worked on this project. I'm sure you agree they're quite high standard, and the feedback from the customers have been decanted is that they're really pleased with the final finish. So from my perspective, that's my performance report. I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Darren. I really appreciate that, and thank you for the photos again. It's always helpful to have that. Starting outside committee, yes. Ian.
Thank you, Chair. On decants, so we're talking about decants there. It says obviously you've got 9 households in decant at the moment, and then 4.4, so this is 4 estate management decants, 4.4, 6 EDC properties, and you said 3 there, but it says 6 here, are being used to decant. Does that mean you've only got 3 households that are in non-East Devon District Council properties? And what's the longest decant household we have at present? So, in other words, have they been out? What's the average they're decanted for? A month, 2 months, a year?
I can't, on top of my head, answer that question with regards to the longest decant. To answer your question in the report, we've got 3, as I said, three properties decanted to using our own stock. There were 6 in temporary accommodation at that moment in time. with regards to the 6 number you mentioned, we've got 3 other properties we've identified. They've yet to be furnished to be used for decanted accommodation.
Can I come back to you?
Yes, Ian.
Thank you. Wait,
Yeah.
so that's the total amount of decants we have at the moment is just 9. There isn't any others from previous months that keep going. So just 9. Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks for your question, Ian. Councillor Weston.
7.8. Sheltered tenancies. How often should you be visiting people? And that the people who are not paying for the sheltered housing premium, how many are there who are not paying? Sorry, was that incoherent?
Can you just
repeat the first?
How often should the tenants be visited?
It depends on the individual. When the mobile support officer visits them, when people move into their properties, they set up a tap with the regularity of visits, which some people request monthly, some people request fortnightly, etc., etc. This particular metric is when we do the tap, so that constitutes a tenancy visit. So, as I've said, 95% of people who live in sheltered accommodation have had their tap renewed and visited. So that's then recorded in our One Housing system.
Great. Anybody from outside committee? No. Okay. Coming inside committee.
Sorry, Weston and White.
And also, how many tenants are not paying the sheltered housing premium, and have they been taken off the books?
I can't answer that question at this moment in time off the top of my head, but I'm happy to address that question outside.
Are you happy with that answer, Councillor Westman? Yeah, oh, fantastic. Okay, coming inside then to inside committee. Any questions? Or are we going to let him off? No, we're going to give you one question, Dan.
Not actually a question, it's a statement, but I think we should recognise that there's been a dramatic improvement in the performance of this area of tenancy regulation and oversight in the past year, because I can recall the levels of tenancy visits was negligible, frankly, in previous reports. So well done to all concerned. Thank you.
Yeah, and Councillor Goodman.
Just a point on point 6.1. It says there state inspections completed within the half year. Then it's got April to June, July. Is that saying you did 8.55% in April, and then a total of 24% in July, and then a total of 42% October, December, but you did a massive amount in January to March? I found that confused. So that is true. So you did very few in April to June, but you did the majority, which is something like 60%, you did in January to March.
Yeah, Katrine's going to take this one.
Thank you.
Yeah, in short, Mike, yes. So to just take Tim's lead and how we respond, yes. There was just to kind of bring you up to speed, because obviously I know you weren't part of the board at that time. There were changes in personnel that have resulted in a significant overhaul in that service. And again, just to reiterate, and thank you to Councillor Burhup for his praise, and I just do want to reiterate my thanks to Darren and the team, because they have literally turned that service around, and they've put in, as you can see, an incredible shift this year. Yeah, that in spite of sickness within the team, some absence within the team as well. So the team have really pulled together to pull that through, and it is a phenomenal turnaround. So yeah, he doesn't sit well with him. Look, he can't even look me in the eye while I'm talking to him. But yeah, great service. Thank you, Darren. If you can make sure the team know that HRB have commended them, that'd be great.
And I think we all recognise that if we get face-to-face visits nice and early, we can head off a lot of stuff that we discuss fairly regularly. So yeah, Councillor Martin. Martins.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I want to just, if you don't mind, go back to complaints for a second. It's not a question, but I wanted to say that the housing complaints panel is a fantastic idea. And I think, having people on there who've actually been through the process really shows that we're willing to put ourselves forward to be transparent and to be scrutinised. I just wanted to say that. Thanks.
Thank you. And I think for the same reason, we have a collection of people on this board as well who have tenants and private. So they've also been through the process too, which is, again, a great addition, isn't it? Fantastic. Okay, again, we're just noting this, and that means that we can move on to agenda item 11. Which is quarter four performance reports. Do we need to, Joel? Sorry. For agenda item 10. We'll just make sure we're covering all our bases. Thank you. Just to be noted.
Just agree to note, yes.
Yeah, we're happy to. Sorry, we're happy to agree to note. Yeah, fantastic. Sorry, yes. Okay, moving on to.
I was expecting a question from Councillor Yes.
Yeah. Agenda item 11, quarter four performance report, properties and assets. For those of you with the pages aligned, it's pages 39 to 57, and we're coming to Nathan, I think, for this one.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to start with a few good news stories. Our TSMs for Q4 of particularly around repairs and just the repairs element have continued to go on up. So we've actually ended up for Q4 at a 70% position for repairs, which is great to see that improvement, particularly during winter when we end up with a lot more. Well, we have a 50% increase in our calls and a 20% increase in our job numbers. To achieve that within that time has been amazing. We've seen a slight drop off in the time taken to respond. We know what the issue is with that, and I'll cover some of that later on. And those improvements are coming about of us having this improvement plan and getting on and delivering it. So we definitely got the right people, well, recruitment sorted. We are getting them to work on patches, which I'll talk a bit more about in a minute. There's still other things that are sort of in train, so collecting the customer feedback for all repairs. We've just started a project on that, so that is starting to progress well, and there are still other bits that we need to get move on, but we would hope to see the improvements in that number. Around the sort of well-maintained positions, so the safer homes, that's remaining relatively stable, although we've got some ideas about how we can increase that, considering the considerable amount of work we're about to start in that area. And I think what we're looking for the asset management strategy to do is show us how we can sort of improve the well-maintained number. The other bit we've really been engaging on is customer engagement activities. I think when I started the role, there was sort of a limited amount of engagement within property and assets. This is something we've really been pushing down into the teams. So whether it's meet the contractor events at Peas and Flats that we did back in February, we've also been getting involved in the complaint scrutiny group. So explaining a bit about what we're doing to try and improve things around repairs. We had a repairs customer journey workshop where we had tenants come in and talked, and we explained our repairs process, and they were giving us feedback and lots of sort of food for thought around how we can make that better. We're also in the process of about to go out for procurement on a kitchens and bathrooms programme. So we've written all the specs. That will very soon go out to tender. As part of that, we've been doing a piece of engagement to ask tenants what do they want in terms of their kitchen designs. And we've now got this board that allows tenants to choose what they actually want their kitchens to look like. Further engagement stuff, we've got plans. We carry on with our repairs and maintenance scrutiny group. So we did a sort of co-design of the agendas this year, and that's working really well. So we're getting loads of scrutiny, but we're also using that group to get loads of input, particularly around new policy, and we've already used that for fire and recharges. We've also got a sort of an engagement program for our planned works, and that's starting to work well. We've got works about to start at Chapel Street, which will start to do that engagement thing. We're also oversubscribing Housing Matters at the moment with articles, because there's lots of things that the team want to come and talk to tenants about, and we're trying to push those messages out. So yeah, loads of really good work going on there. The other area where we're really building some capability is around our surveying capacity, so particularly our maintenance surveyors who go out to respond to repairs. So we've got them on patch-based working. That is just paying dividends in terms of one surveyor operates in that area, so they know what is going on in that sector. In terms of correct equipment for surveyors, so we've fully equipped our surveyors. Excuse the image, it is AI generated, but I just want to make the point that they are now going out with ladders, they're going out with thermal imaging cameras, they're going out with damp meters, so they have the equipment to properly identify what is going on in that property. The other thing we've done recently is, well, first we got a standard maintenance report for all surveys, so they've now got a template that they need to fill in, but we've also started to use AI to run that report through that, to come up with a report that tenants can understand, and we're sending that out on the back of each survey so so we can explain what is going on, why we're doing it, and when they expect that works to happen. And the other bit is a lot of coaching and training going on here, so we're getting external training, internal training from our senior surveyor in this area, who has a lot of experience and is really driving a lot of this stuff through, and her efforts should definitely be noted in this area. Areas where we are experiencing challenges on, so we were doing really well on a percentage of repairs completed within target up until Q4. Winter hit, our contractors didn't have the resources necessary in place to meet that demand, and our learning point from that is everyone will, or our contractors will have a winter plan next year to make sure they can deal with that increase. Complaint numbers, so you do see a trend there. We do, and these just relate to property and assets, but we do see a spike generally within the winter, but that seems to be continuing on this year, and I suspect a lot of it is because we are pushing back on stuff like kitchens, windows, and etc. But we are conscious of that, and so we are doing everything we can to try and bring that down. Disrepair cases continue to remain high. We're aware of the resource challenges around that, and we are starting to resolve that. We are also called for an internal audit on disrepair, and we're about to start that so we can start to unpick what really is going on there and what action we need to take. And then there's our voids performance. So Q3, that was alarming. Q4 is continued to alarm us, which has resulted in us doing a bit more of a detailed investigation into what is going on with voids. Part of that sort of unpicking of those numbers, we've found that the progress that had been made is that we were unpicking or doing a lot of the easier voids, and a lot of the more difficult stuff wasn't getting dealt with, and I think that's referenced in our report where we'd say if we're taking out some of these very long voids out of the numbers, then it will look better, but we still have a lot of backlog of issues or more difficult voids. So on the back of this work, we mapped it out. We mapped out the process that's been followed just to check that it is right and does align with our systems. That's flagged up probably the complication around us bringing in sort of temp accommodation and decant accommodation within that it's made it more complicated, and we do need some better classification to sort of understand what's going on there. We've also reviewed all 170 vacant properties at that time, and that was void, out of management. We reviewed the lot, and out of that, we do know that we need to put some more resource on that, and we're actively pursuing that. So you can see the number breakdown there of numbers. The numbers highlighted in yellow are probably the ones we've got concern around. So pre-inspections, that's with our contractor. They have actually made an improvement there. So that number has come down, I think, to about 24 this month. So it's good to see that improvement being made. We've got 21 that are awaiting consideration for disposal, but we need to develop that route for doing that and make sure that's resourced correctly. We've also got a number that need major works, and we need to we need to develop some capability to deliver that works alongside all the other capital works that we've got going on. And also with our contract void works, we're aware of what the issue is now there, and it's particularly relating to one of our contractors. So we've got a meeting with them this afternoon to hopefully resolve that. You can see from the sort of March to April, the numbers are improving a lot, and we've got an action plan there to address the voids position. Complaints continue to go well because so at the start we've got the right bums on seat with that. We are also having further internal audits around fire and safety and Legionella, and we'll come back and provide you further insight of what those audits came back with, but we are already actioning them. We're not waiting for the reports. We're doing a lot to resolve those issues. Big success in complaints is having new contracts. So we've recently awarded a fire contract that will enable us to further reduce the number of remedials, even though the guys have made some great progress, without those contracts to get them resolved. Also done radon, we're about to award on electric. The guys are now preparing Legionnaire and fire risk assessment contracts. The other thing we're driving through is this performance framework, which is giving a lot more assurance around our numbers. With the plan works, guys, so a lot of questions around that. What I would say at the start of that is, and I've spun up a number of these programs, they take time. It takes time for us to scope the works. It takes time for us to procure that, but it is a bit like a flywheel. So once you get that initial momentum, it does start to build, and I feel like that is happening. Good examples of where we are. So Trump's Court, we finished. That is looking amazing down there. We do want to do a bit of an opening event on that, and that'll probably happen in June. Work's progressing well on Peas and Flats, you can see there. So in terms of roof replacement, putting new kitchens in, and we've also got the Lad 1 programme ongoing, which is where we installed a load of air source heat pumps but didn't do the other works. We're now going back and doing that other works, and that should be finished by end of June, July. We're also about to start on Chapel Street. Some of those pictures at the bottom there are of a retaining wall that's failed, so we're having to deal with the private landowner to get that resolved as part of that work. But we will be doing an initial engagement piece with the residents there to start that contract off. Just finally, we always try and do a bit of a case study. Just want to flag what we're doing around sort of adaptations. So our adaptation demand is increasing, not so much around the majors, which is good. It is the more minor stuff that we can address because we have to self-fund this. There is no sort of disability facilities grants or DFG funding for this, so we have to fund this out of our own accounts. This is probably going to go up further with on the back of AWAB's law, or the second stage when that comes in, that will cover sort of falls and etc. And it's a good thing for us to be doing this to sort of stop people from falling and then ending up in hospital. So we want to actually see more of that work going on. And that concludes my report, Chair.
Thank you, Nathan. Thank you for that thorough report. It was good detail. Thank you. Questions from outside? Yes, Councillor Barlow.
Thank you, Chair. I asked for information for the last 5 years of how many bathrooms, kitchens and decarbs we've done, because one of the things when we got in a little difficulty and we overspent our reserves and our budgets was the forward plan was showing how many we were going to do. And we don't know how many you've done. I asked that, but you said you were going to give it today, but I haven't seen the figures there. Sorry, I don't know if I missed them. Yeah, I'll ask.
So the team have pulled together some numbers. They are just from our plan works team at the moment. So in 24-25, we did 81 kitchens. 25-26, they only did 3. So the context for that is that our contract in 24-25 didn't go as well as we wanted to. So we didn't continue with that contract, and the guys have now been spending the back end of last year resolving the issues with that contract. So we're ready to go out again with a better contract. And I think we're planning for this 26-27 to complete 100. So these are where people have made referrals. We've absolutely acknowledged that work needs to be done, and they are then on that programme. Similar pictures for bathrooms, so 48 at 24-25. I think we only did 2 on the plan works, but again, this year we are aiming to do 60, and so with this new contract, that will allow us to happen. On the decarb stuff, so 24-25 we didn't do anything on, 25-26 we've done 48, and then at 26-27 we've got another 70 planned, so that's the work that's ongoing. So we will include these numbers in future reports, so you've got better sort of governance and assurance around the works we're doing around our component replacement.
Thank you, Nathan. That's good detail as well.
I just wonder if I can, Chair, through you, if this is the sort of thing that HRB should be looking at to see if we can improve. Critical friend, as to why you went from, 48, 81 kitchens sounds great, but I think it was supposed to be more than that anyway. And if the contract wasn't right, why wasn't that reported to HRB? Why aren't we looking into that sort of thing? And can we help to make sure that this sort of thing doesn't happen again? I think that's the whole point of scrutiny, that you look not only forward but also backwards to say what went wrong. Otherwise, officers just do it, they report themselves, that's great, but then what's the point of HRP? Why don't you just note everything and let them get on with it?
I'm going to bring in Andy just to comment, or Katrine.
Well, I was just going to add a bit more context around, well, to reiterate what Nathan said at the beginning there, but those figures as well, let's remember they are the planned works figures. What those figures aren't reflecting is what we've done reactively. So where we've picked up case by case ad hoc, so there'll be lots more component replacements, not just talk about kitchens and bathrooms across the board. We're trying to work on that shift to do it in a planned way, hence the asset management strategy that's coming through, so that we can operate in that planned way rather than reactive. But really just to highlight that those figures are not a total picture.
If I could come back on that, Joe, just again, that's great, but of course you didn't spend the money on repairs this year, reactive repairs. You haven't spent the money on the planned capital expenditure. So it's always, and I know staff's always a problem. It's always a problem, but you're making these contracts, and we should be looking at those contracts. Where did it go wrong? Can we make sure it doesn't happen again? Just in case you change places. And I know in a minute it's all going to change anyway with LGR, so perhaps it's pointless at this stage after 3 years of the same thing.
Sorry, can I come in, Chair? I think it's really difficult to sit here routinely repeating the same thing, really, so if you forgive me. But the whole point is we acknowledge that when there was new management and leadership that came into this housing team, that there had been a significant practice of dealing with things on a reactive, responsive approach. Things were not planned. So looking backwards, we can, as we've just heard, you can categorically say that there was very little planning happening and that it was all done on a case-by-case basis to literally kind of keep the wolf from the doors would probably be the best way to describe it. The turnaround in the shift in just the 2 years that I've been here has been incredible in terms of trying to change that approach, trying to change the budgetary controls, trying to stop things in their tracks, trying to deal with complaints, trying to deal with disrepair cases, to try and turn the very big ship of what is 4,500 homes. This is not something that is just done on we got 10 properties, we can flip them, it'll all be okay. This is a significant programme and has to be done well. Now, I aren't accountable. Wasn't accountable for the setup of the contract for the stock condition survey. I wasn't. I therefore came in, picked that up, and we dealt with how do we turn that around. The fact that that was given a 2-year period for completion was out of my control. Since we've had that data, we're working really, really hard with colleagues who are from other organisations who are supporting us in pulling together the plan, so that we are actively having a rollout plan, that we've got a business plan for 30 years. The fact that we, as a council, will cease to exist in 2 years does not negate us from having that plan in place so that we are in a position to hand over to whoever that new unitary authority is, a plan that shows that the HRA is affordable, that we've been good stewards, and that we are handing it over in a very good, strong condition. And I'm sorry, Councillor, if you disagree with that approach, but I believe it's the right one to do.
Totally agree with the approach, obviously, and that's what we've been promised for the last 3 years I've been on this committee. Oh, I haven't been on the committee, sorry, on this council. So I'm not saying that is brilliant. It's just that this committee is supposed to scrutinise these things, and I just wonder if we should be doing TAFs or working groups to look into these. And I know before when we've asked for these that you're too busy to do that. But anyway, I will say no more and leave it to it.
Thank you, Ian. Councillor Gazzard.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your report, which is excellent. It's well laid out, even for somebody like me. I do appreciate that. I've just got a couple of questions. One is to do with voids, and I hear what you say, that you're concerned about the number of voids that we have. I have for a long time come to this committee and asked the question, why is it not possible to let ward members know where voids are in their ward? Because we're the ones that are on the ground, and we're the ones that get it in the neck by people that are desperate for council accommodation, and we don't know whether a property is a void or not. It may be empty, we don't know. And you may say, well, we use the form to fill in and ask a question. Well, some of us can't do that because of technical problems. So that's one question. Could you look at that to see if it's possible to let ward members know where the voids are in their ward? The second question is on page 45, sorry, put my glasses on, section 21, where you talk about where stage 2 complaints have fallen down and they've been reported to the Ombudsman. And you say that there are approximately 2 cases per month that are referred to the Ombudsman. I find that quite outstanding, actually. Obviously, people don't go to the Ombudsman unless they're not, the complaint system has actually failed them. I mean, is 24 higher than last year? I don't know. I mean, it goes on to what Councillor Goodman said before. There's no comparison. But I'm just absolutely appalled that we are referring 2 per month to the Ombudsman for them to look at. And it must mean extra work for our officers to deal with the Ombudsman or the reports that you've got to send in. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Steve, for those comments. I'm just going to come to Andy just to answer your first part.
Yeah, probably quite a short answer, if I'm honest. As you say, that question's been raised quite a few times, and we've explained why it's not practicable for us operationally to be notifying individual ward members every time a void or a let happens in that area. It's just not possible, and we're managing that operationally. As you've seen, we've got challenges in the void process. I think what we're not looking to do is add in additional administrational functions to an already difficult process that we need to manage and improve on anyway. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, Councillor Gazard.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I say I found that answer absolutely, I just do not understand why it's that really difficult. Perhaps I need to come in the office and see what the problem is, because I just do not understand. It seems quite simple to me to do, and I don't know about my colleagues around the table, but I'm astounded by that, that you can send emails out about other things, but you can't send emails out about void properties in our wards. Thank you.
Anybody else from outside committee want to come in? No? Okay, coming inside committee.
Chair, the response to the question I had about the Ombudsman on number 21 on page 45.
And I'll go to Andy.
Andy, okay.
So I think, as was asked in the complaints report about some benchmarking data, we'll look to put some of that in the future so that people can see how that responds to wider sector trends. I would say within housing, it's not that unusual for complaints to go to the Ombudsman. Of course, a number of the complaints that go to the Ombudsman, of course, we failed, and that is the determinations that come out of that. We reflect on that, we take learning, we try and stop it from happening again. But also, quite often people will go to the Ombudsman because that is exactly what our process tells them to do. It's what our process has to tell them to do under the regulations and the Ombudsman guide. The stage 2 letter will tell them this is our final response. If you are unhappy still, then you must contact the Housing Ombudsman and give their details. That's what we have to do, and it's the correct thing to do. So again, it's not necessarily that we've failed in the complaint. It can often be that a complainant has not had the answer that they wanted, and that results in them going to the Ombudsman to look into the case, and then they will make a determination on whether or not we have fulfilled our duties as a landlord and stuck to the complaint handling code.
Just to add something to Andy's scene, we've also seen these Housing Ombudsman cases go back some time, so it's 2024, some of them, and we're getting a lot of learning out of that, so we're from the team. They're doing a great job of giving us those insights about what caused that, and I'm pretty confident in a lot of cases we're resolving that. There's still a few bit of learning from it, but you know, we are putting those measures in place now to stop them from happening again moving forwards.
Thank you, Nathan. Councillor Brian Bailey.
Thank you, Simon. I'm not too sure if this is the right place, but I see it on the agenda, overnight parking and antisocial behaviour. Now, I've been engaged with a parking manager, Richard Easterbrook, who's been very, very helpful in the problems we've got in Exmouth with overnight parking and antisocial behaviour. He's come up with a new scheme whereby hopefully it will be managed and controlled, and it should cut it out altogether in a couple of car parks. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank him very much for his good works. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate that. Thank you. So we're inside committee now. Councillor Martins, yeah.
I've got actually a few questions, so I might ask one and then you could go to Mike and then come back to me if you want. So I'm just going to firstly just carry on from what Ian and Catherine were talking about. I would look forward to seeing the figures and the reporting on kitchens, bathrooms, etc. And maybe figures around value for money, how we're demonstrating value for money. But I also have a lot of faith in our team right now, headed up by Catherine. You know, I was involved in the recruitment of Catherine, and I do have faith that she can deliver this. We are in our last year now of being councillors, so I'm going to look at the performance quite closely over the next 12 months, and I'd like to see that we've done a lot of work in this area. We're getting value for money, and that the budget tracks well, and that we spend the money that we've got and we don't go over budget. I mean, I am the first person who will go to Catherine at the end of my tenure, and if we've knocked this out of the park, I'll be so happy to, you know, shake her hand and give her a big hug and say, well done. That's my first point.
We won't mention that on live stream. Yeah. I think we're on the same page. It sounds like we're on the same page about that. So, Councillor Goodman.
I've got three actually. First one is not a question really, but just I'm very pleased what you've done at Trumps, and when you do promote it, can we do some really positive press on it, because it was a real problem for the council, but we have turned it round, and I think it's important that we tell people what we've done. The other 2 points I've got is on page 41, you've talked about a damp and mould risk assessment. Risk assessment, and also on page 51 about the fire assessment. Are we using our newly appointed risk officer in compiling that, because risk is so important, and they only started about 2 months ago, but I think it'll be worth, this is a risk assessment on mould, and for EDC, because I've seen some risk assessments that perhaps could do with his work now he's working for us. I'm just trying to be helpful really, and because risk is so important, and these are two very important pieces of work in the mould and the fire, and I just suggest that they talk to him.
Sounds like Andy might have an answer for you.
Yep. You can tell by my question, Mike, that the answer is no, we don't use them. And that's purely because we've got specific roles and functions within housing that are very housing specific on risk management, compliance. So, for example, our compliance team, our compliance manager, they know housing risk. And it's very different to corporate risk. And it's a different game. So we've got those specific roles set up within housing. Is that...
Not about the different risks, it's about how you arrive at the valuation of the different risks and the mitigation of those risks.
Yes, one and the same in my mind. So those people are the people who we've employed within housing, who know housing, are trained in the housing areas of risk and compliance to make sure that we're compliant. We've got slightly different rules and legislation that we need to meet compared to, say, corporate risk. And things that the council may operate in. As a landlord, we operate in a very different arena of compliance and regulation. But to
I will
give
look-
confidence we've got those right people within our team to do that.
I really look forward to seeing it because I know a little bit about risk, so I'd like to see that when it's done. And what you've also said on page 51 about the risk, the policy has been completed with the Repair and Maintenance Scrutiny Committee. Who is that? Is that?
It's our tenant scrutiny committee.
Thank you.
Super. Anybody else in committee? Councillor Martins, yeah.
Beg your pardon. Page 42, Awab's Law, number 12. So Awab's Law has some pretty stringent guidelines for responding. For instance, 24 hours for emergency repairs, significant hazards within 14 days, begin those repairs within 5 working days. You talk about previous established capability and does not report severity, but the survey's inspection does. I guess my question is, are we working within the guidelines set down by Awab's Law?
Andy?
So within the guidelines of Awab's Law, we've got time to be able to meet those requirements. We are working as fast as we can. We obviously, as with all these things, there's no single track project or workflow that needs to be done to meet it. We're looking at systems. You're talking about contract. You're talking about messaging, that messaging out to customers, talking about how we are recording those KPIs and how we are able to demonstrate we're meeting it. So that's all of the work. There's a huge project that Nathan's leading on across teams, with systems, with our contractors, and with various other parties involved. And we know that there's going to be more of that introduced later this year. So Awab's Law is coming out in a phased approach. So yeah, it's about working on those systems and practices, and in particular working with Ian Williams, who are going to be the main person in terms of our contractor, who needs to help us meet those requirements to respond in those timeframes. They are tough timeframes. We already do emergency repairs, for example, but adding in the 5-day is a complete addition to how we manage any other repairs. So it's all of those considerations. But yeah, I think monthly working groups are being chaired within the operational teams to drive that project forward.
Brilliant. Yes.
And my other little question was about gas, which was, what page was that on? I haven't written it down. You're saying that we've got several people whose gas has been capped and you're exploring other heating alternatives. Does that mean that while we're exploring, they don't have any?
Yes, so if their gas is capped, then their gas heating won't be working. To be clear though, that's not us. We've capped it and said, oh, your gas heating's no good, so we're going to cap it, and we'll think about what we can do. It's usually because a tenant has refused to have a gas safety inspection and have told us that they are not using gas, or we've gone out to do it, but there's no money on the meter, and they say, we don't use the gas, my heating's too expensive. They will have signed a waiver to acknowledge the risks with not heating their home. But of course, as a responsible landlord, we have to then look at that and think, well, if this heating solution isn't working for you within this property, is there an alternative that we can do? And of course, there's lots of other work that goes on that's flagged when a customer tells us that in terms of referring them financial support work, all of that kind of stuff, of course, happens around it. But you also, from my experience on the ground in housing over the years, I remember going to see tenants who said, no, my boiler's switched off, I don't like it, I use my little electric heater in my living room, and that's all I want, thank you very much. It's how they've chosen to live, and again, it's about education around looking after the property and what lack of heating can do. So, huge piece of work around it, but none of those relate to us just saying, we're capping your gas, because we don't want to do an inspection, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Mel. Some great questions there. That's good. Yes, Chris.
Just quickly, Chair. A couple of points that were raised out of committee. One was to do with the concept of notifying councillors of voids in their area, and it would absolutely be of interest. However, I can recognise that there are 60 councillors. There are 4,200 properties. The actual logistics of constant churn, where we've got, some voids lasting 3 weeks, some not, but constant churn, and the logistics of managing that would be, you'd probably have to employ someone permanently to just provide that information. I'm sorry, Steve. I recognise it would be useful, but I don't see it's practical. And the second point is, in terms of voids, we were forewarned at the last meeting that the void statistic for Q4 was likely to jump, as we had, and this phrase wasn't used, but we'd probably picked the low-hanging fruit of the ones that were easy and quick to turn around, to get the voids number down, so we could get the revenue in for and more people, and tenants in place, which makes an awful lot of sense. We're left with the difficult high-hanging fruit, which is, some of them are going to take 100, 200 days, maybe longer, and I recognise that, that's going to have an impact on the statistics. However, we're still only operating at 2% voids, and that is frictional is a technical term, I suppose you might say. It's not a bad statistic. It's really good, and considering where we have been on voids in the past, I'd like to congratulate the team on continuing to do what is, I think, a transformational job over the past 12 months on work in this area. So thank you.
Mel, we'll wrap it up with you.
Thank you, and I'm sorry to ask another question, but this is what Chris has said has just made me remember it. I found the report on voids really complicated, to be honest with you, and I have asked a few other people how they found it, and they agreed, and I'd like to request that it's presented a little more simply or just differently. And if you want me to give you some detail around that, I'm happy to do that, but it blew my head rather.
Katrina.
Thank you.
Yeah, no probs. We can look at that, and if we can talk outside, that'd be fab, so that we can kind of understand. I think the other thing is that we've got a lunchtime learning session planned to look at voids and disposals, so that we cover all of that off, because I'm conscious that there are the members outside of this committee that have also asked questions about the process. So we'll run another lunchtime learning. I think it's the May session that it's planned for, but I'll double check that with Democratic Services. But yeah, we're planning on doing a session on that, so that's no problem.
I was hoping we might be able to wrap up with now. Is it really important?
Just a suggestion from what Chris has just said. When they revised the void information, could it be put on the library so it's confidential, and then members, if they want to know what the voids are, could go in once a week, once a month, and it's just updated and put on there? It might be a simpler way of doing it, or is it too complicated?
I guess it's too operational would also be my argument, Mike. Do you know what I mean? It's an operational thing. It can change on the daily basis as properties come in and out. And I don't want to get us and officers tied too much up, you know. I think if there's a specific query about a specific long-term void, if councillors, as they are now, come through the inquiry process, if there's any issues with accessing that inquiry process, if people speak to Democratic Services, they can be supported in that. But I think if we leave it as it is, I've just got slight concerns, as Chris has already said, about the impact really in terms of workload.
Okay, Giles, we're just noting this, aren't we? That, yes, fantastic. We're happy with that. Okay, for sake of time, I'm hoping you've all had a chance to read the agenda item 12, the HRB annual report. So all I'm going to ask is, have you got any questions on that? Lots of what's in that report has been featured highly in this meeting already. So there shouldn't be too much unknown then, undiscussed items. Any questions from outside committee? No, fine. Coming inside committee? Yeah, Councillor.
Just two very simple points. On the remit of the board, it doesn't say scrutinising. And the second point is, unless I've missed it, and I apologise if I have, you don't, I think, mention all the work that's been done on the stock condition survey, unless I've missed it. If I have missed it, I apologise. If not, I think it's such an important piece of work that's been done, ought to be mentioned. But forgive me if I have missed it.
Thank you. Both points are noted. So, fine. Okay, we've got that on record anyway, so we can go back. So, anything else? Anybody else? No? Fantastic. Okay, in that case, we're just noting that as well. And that brings our meeting to a close. Thank you very much for everybody taking the time to come out. Thank you, officers, for your reports. Really appreciated. And enjoy the rest of your sunny day.